Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Classical Academy podcast, your friendly guide to the world of classical Christian education. I'm your host, Dr. Mark Phillips. We are so glad you joined us tonight. I bet you're familiar with the word fable. Maybe even have read some or had some read to you. Maybe even you know Aesop. How familiar are you with progymnasmata? Well, we're going to be talking about all of that with our guest tonight, Mrs. Rebekah Richardson. In her life before Trinity, she spent 2 years in public school teaching second grade. She's very happy to be now here at Trinity and is in her 4th year of teaching 5th grade humanities. She has been a pastor's wife for 18 years, one of the highest callings among people. She has 4 daughters, all who have attended Trinity. They all enjoy playing volleyball, and she is great at coaching volleyball. Wonderful thing about Rebekah is that she has a great gift of hospitality. I remember I borrowed a set of markers from her one day, and they were delivered to me with a beautiful ribbon tied around them, just to borrow a set of markers. She finds great fulfillment in that. She loves good food, especially sushi, and her husband Andrew's barbecue. Rebekah, welcome. We're very glad you're with us tonight.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for your kind words.
Well, listen, why do we study fables? What do they mean to us? Why do we study them?
Well, in a short, succinct way, I would say, we teach our students here at Trinity to create good, wise students who are able to write and speak well.
And so fables help them achieve this, in other words.
Yes, it's a springboard into doing that as what we'll get into with the progymnasmata, that succession. But yes, to create students who know to love good and wise things, and then to be able to write them, and then to speak them, and then eventually to persuade their audience of what those true, good, and beautiful things are.
So these are the things fables teach us. In learning about fables, we learn about those things, those important virtues.
Yes.
I think everybody associates the word fable with Aesop. Aesop's Fables, probably the most famous set. Who was Aesop?
Well, Aesop is it's known that he was a Greek slave. Around 600 BC, he was born, and he's an interesting character who used rhetoric and would maneuver throughout whatever situation he might have been in as a slave or someone interacting with other philosophers, and he would use these stories using animals, short stories that would have a moral, a truth that you could learn from them, and he was able to persuade and convince others around him by using these fables. And he wrote over 600 fables in his lifetime, which is mind-boggling. We know a few of them, off the top of our head, like the tortoise and the hare, and others like that. But he passed them on with oral tradition.
Mm-hmm. Sure,
So,
oral tradition. Let people know what that is.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, when I'm speaking to my 5th graders, I can tell them an interesting fact about World War II, something that happened or a statistic.
Mm-hmm.
But if they sit on Grandpa's lap, who is a veteran, who has experienced World War II and has a whole story with characters and setting, and can persuade them of something that he learned during that time, it's going to be much more attainable for that child, and it's going to change their idea and perception of what they're trying to learn.
So is it part of this aspect of the memorability of fables makes them so valuable in the oral tradition? We take printing for granted now, but during his time, it was not so easy to produce a book of fables. And so I think is that one of the important aspects of fables, especially at the time they were created by Aesop, that they're memorable?
Yes, yeah, and in so many other areas of history, that's how things were recorded and passed down. And then, yes, they were written, and then also the other part of reading and studying fables are the beautiful pictures that come with it. We'll get into what fables are a little bit more, but the idea of using animals who have human characteristics, who are a little bit quirky, who have different vices, or who find themselves in a pickle here or there, is very attractive to a young reader or a young listener. So.
What are some of his? You mentioned the tortoise and the hare. What are some of his most famous fables? Maybe people have even heard them. They don't even know they originated with the Aesop tradition.
Sure. So the tortoise and the hare, the moral is slow and steady wins the race, or never give up. The ant and the grasshopper talks about working and working hard, working with diligence, not being lazy, working ahead, being prepared. We have the lion and the mouse. And that fable tells us how mercy brings reward, and small heroes can save large animals. The mouse comes to return the gift of mercy he was received, and in return, the lion is saved.
So do you have one or two of your own favorites?
I do. Right now, we are doing the Four Young Bulls and a Lion. It talks about in unity is strength. I enjoy, we're doing the flies in the honey pot, which is a great imagery of, flies, how disgusting are flies. And then we come to honey, and it's delicious, and seeing something that you want so badly and indulging in this honey that they end up suffocating and losing their lives. My students have a really fun time learning about those.
So the moral there is obviously indulgence leads to, if not death of virtue, certainly. Yes. Well, now this is all part of the writing program here. We're going to be talking about that in segment 2. And that all falls under this broad umbrella, what we call the progymnasmata.
You can say that again.
What is that? Yeah. What is that? Where does it come from?
Okay, well, I'm just going to take sort of a sense of how I would tell my fifth graders or my fifth grade parents about a school night. What I do is I basically write this word on the board in syllables, progymnasmata. And just as you would do in your teaching, you look at words within the word, or maybe the Latin derivative, or let's take the prefix off and see what that means. So when you hear right in the middle of the word, when I say progymnasmata, students automatically, or parents, my fifth grade parents automatically see the word gym. We all know what a gym is, and what do we do at a gym? Well, we exercise.
Yes.
Okay. And so the that's the pre, that stands for preliminary exercises. These are the before exercises before we even get into writing our own ideas down, our own persuasive arguments. So
it's like lifting weights to strengthen certain muscle groups for a particular sport that you're going to play. This is strengthening those brain muscles for this sport of fable or writing in general.
Exactly. Well, so I will give you sort of a more in-depth view of what the progymnasmata is, but or a more succinct idea of what it is. But I want to have you find 3 words as I read it out loud. Okay.
Sure,
so the
let's do it.
progymnasmata, which is Greek for preliminary exercises. I want you to hear the words retelling, persuasion, and then earlier exercises as I read it. So this begins for all students with a simple retelling, not creating, but retelling of fables and short narrative stories. From there, the student gradually moves on to the exercises in simple exposition and persuasion. Okay, so there's our persuasion. That's the next part. Each exercise features a fixed outline and specified subject matter. The more advanced exercises of the progymnasmata combine elements of the earlier exercises to create increasingly complex, effective compositions. So I know that's a big definition, but a few things. When we begin in 5th grade, we actually do a little bit in 4th grade as well. When we retell fables, I am not giving a student a blank piece of paper and say, tell me about your summer vacation. That's all good and fine, and that can be a journaling or, fun
Sure.
assignment later. But I am going to hand them a beautifully written fable that has stood the test of time, whose characters are already well established in a setting. There's beautiful imagery. There's a moral established already. And we can get into it later as far as what those exercises look like. But this is to make writing accessible for every student. So whether you are a student who loves to write or who isn't sure exactly what to write, it's already written for you. So we're going to take something that's beautiful and already established, and we're going to retell it in different exercises. And then we'll get into that in the next segment. But then the next part of the progymnasmata is to persuade your audience. So now that you've seen how to write something beautifully, do some exercises within that, your goal as a student is to persuade your audience, whether that be on a cultural topic, something that's contemporary, ultimately the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Sure.
know how to write well and speak well, then you can persuade your audience of the gospel.
The most important subject
Exactly,
of persuasion.
yes. And then the last thing that I was saying in this is that as you advance through it, so you begin in 5th grade here at Trinity, goes through 6th grade into logic school and into rhetoric school. And I have 3 daughters who are past 5th grade.
Yes.
So it's really interesting. It's very fun to be able to be part of the springboard with Fables, to see them advance to the next stages. And, I have a junior, and at the beginning of her writing class this year, and then my freshman and my 6th grader, they were all writing fables, retelling, doing different exercises, just like they did in 5th grade, because it's reminding them of the earlier stages and then how they are going to move on to the more difficult stages.
So I think our listeners would be curious about the origins of the progym. What was the setting? Why was it developed? And who was it meant for?
Great question. The progymnasmata was established in ancient Greek. It began in ancient Greek, and then it continued into the Roman times. And to be a Greek citizen or a Roman citizen, it was very important for you to be able to think on your own and to speak on your own and to be able to persuade those around you. And so this writing technique, or the way in which they taught writing and rhetoric, came about because of this idea of needing to think on your own and persuade others. And during this time, students started attending school at the age of 12. Now, what do you like to listen to or read or know about at the age of 12? There's stories. You're still in this imaginative world where you love animals and you are figuring out who you are and what kind of character might I emulate, and what sort of morals can I learn from that. So that was a beginning stage, because the students that were coming into school were young children about the age of 12.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I think in segment 2, I'd like to get into the parts, the stages of a fable. So stay with us. We're glad you're with us, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to part 2 of our podcast with Rebekah Richardson. Listen, if you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe, give us a review. Please share the podcast with any friends or family who need a friendly guide to the world of classical Christian education. Classical Christian education is becoming more important than ever in the day and times in which we are living. So please spread the word. We'd love to hear from you as well. Rebekah, back with you. We've talked about fables, and I want to go into a little more detail about them. How would you answer the idea of what an overview of the key parts of the fable stage in the progym would be? What is an overview of the key parts of the fable stage in the progym here at Trinity?
Okay, this is the fun part. This
Yeah.
is where you get to apply all those theoretical ideas. Okay, so basically, a fable, for everyone who probably already knows this already, but a fable is a short story. It includes animals as human characters, or as main characters, excuse me. They generally have shortcomings, like people, and they find themselves in trouble. And then there is a moral or a lesson to be learned at the end. So, like I said, in 5th grade, we take well-written fables, and we apply different exercises or preliminary exercises to that. So there's a few that I'm going to list. The first one, which is the most fun, and when I said earlier that fables, and again the progymnasmata later, it really is writing for every student. There should be no student who leaves a writing class feeling frustrated or not knowing what to do. The beauty of it is that there is a formula which is given, and it's clearly laid out, purposeful with your age, purposeful with where the different level of thinking that you're at. But it also inspires creativity. So we all know those, you can think it through your class and you have a student who's very mathematical, right? Or scientific. I know you can be both mathematical and creative. I'm sure you know that. But some students get very intimidated by writing. So they would love to have a formula that lets them know, why am I doing this? Where am I going to go next? I'm going to work through this stage. I'm going to just get to the next one. And then there's some students who want to draw a beautiful picture before they even start writing, because it's all in their head and they have all this imagination and creativity, and they're going to just take it to its limits. So, and there are no limits in writing. So when you can have this fable stage come to them at a young age, they have both this formula and the creativity that they can use. So one of the most fun exercises we do is narrating or retelling the fable. So we will read it together as a class, look at some keywords, get some comprehension, and then this is where it comes in for everyone. So there are students who might not be as strong in putting pencil to paper. They might be able to orally comprehend something perfectly, but then you have them write and they go, there's a blockage there. So when you retell a fable, I have them partner up with a friend or challenge themselves to say it back to the class. So they're wanting to follow as closely to the original fable as they can, remembering all the sequence of events, and for some, it stresses them out because that's too hard of a challenge, and some rise to the occasion because they love being able to speak it before they even write it. And really, it becomes part of their DNA. It actually becomes part of them because they've internalized it and now they are speaking it.
I can tell you it is part of the DNA. Just in the science classes, when we learn about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle or Hund's rule or the Pauli exclusion principle, I'll have them repeat it back in your own words so that you learn it. And it's amazing how they're able to do that so quickly. You can tell the ones who have had the fable training. And then I'll ask them, what aspect of God does this particular law reflect? And they're able to go there pretty quickly. And I think for the first time, I'm grasping how the fable training really helps them with these exercises in something like a chemistry class or a biology class. It's quite astounding. That being said, what are some of the other exercises? I want to get through them because they're fascinating. I'm already seeing the tie-in to all the other subjects.
They are fascinating, yes. So the next one, no necessarily order here, is that the students will invert the sequence of events. So with the process of learning to outline a story, they can maneuver them around like a puzzle piece. Take this part without changing the story or the meaning or the main concept learned. They can change the sequence of events, and then they have to use words that that transition into that reordered event.
Now, it's still the same story and moral. They're just moving the events around. And
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yes. So that beginning, middle, and end, they have
Great.
to make sure it still has the same moral and the flow and lessons learned, but they can rechange it. And they are the author, and that's the thing. They're using something that's already well written, this fable, and doing an exercise with that.
Fabulous.
Another one is to reduce, and we have scissors, and we really sometimes literally reduce it. We'll take up adjectives, adverbs, prepositional phrases, all those things that we're trying to generally get our students to use more of, and to take that out and to, I think, what's it called? A précis is the shortest. This is a challenge where I say, okay, if you can get this whole fable into 25 words or less with good grammar, you're not changing, no incomplete sentences, and they love it. They will spend their recess. There's usually candy involved, but they love to do that. And again, for some, they thrive on it, and some, I did the basics. I did it in my formula. I did it. It's fine. Another exercise would be to amplify. That would be the opposite of reducing. You are really adding fluff to your story. This is where if you want to add the prepositional phrases and the descriptions and the quote, dialogue and all of our figures of description, which there are 18, and we learned that in a fun jingle.
Fabulous.
And then another one, the last one I will talk about, is changing the viewpoint. And this is where a student can really empathize with the characters in the story. So say we're doing the tortoise and the hare. They can put themselves in first person as the tortoise and then expand on their feelings and what they are learning and the way they're pushing themselves and their thoughts. And it's a great way that, again, like I said, they can empathize with the characters and actually be learning that moral or that lesson themselves.
That's just fantastic. So, wow, I just, every time I have a conversation like this, I'm like, I wish I had done this as a student. I wish my children had done this. Studying fables obviously has a very wonderful shaping of the students. How would you sum up fables, studying fables, and fable writing? How does it shape the students? Why is it important?
Sure. Studying fables can be utilized the same way as you would do any other exercise. That might be in sports drills. You're learning to dribble the soccer ball, how to spike the volleyball, how to train for that race. Doing scales in piano. Those before exercises make you a better piano player. You're going to be able to attack those new pieces with diligence and the foreknowledge. Repetition coupled with intentionality in those exercises really make a proficient writer. And then the next thing I would say for shaping our students here at Trinity, we talk about, one of our pillars is wisdom. And how do we become a wise person who loves good, truth, and beauty? But what the main outcome you want for our students is that they would become a leader. Now, you can have good leaders and you can have bad leaders, right? True. And to be able to lead well means that you need to be able to think well. You need to know truth. You need to know what is beautiful, be able to distinguish right from wrong, and then be able to write and then speak to persuade your audience. And we have the culmination of that, right, which is our senior thesis.
Yes.
And if you're at home and you've never attended one of our senior theses, they are amazing. My own children have gone to them since they were little, and they knew pressure's on. But really, we're holding their hand in 5th grade to get to that point.
Sure, I can see the foundation, how it works, and she's right. If you haven't seen one, get on the Trinity YouTube station, watch some of these theses, and you'll see what happens here at Trinity and in classical Christian education in general.
Yeah, and our students are taught to take a somewhat controversial topic, maybe in culture, and to put various thoughts and exercises into that. They have to refute it and all these things. But they have to get up in front of an audience and persuade their audience. Whether audience that has presuppositions or wants to agree with them or not, they do an amazing job at being able to persuade them. So not only that, but to be able to go on and be a leader in your community. We don't just do it so we create really nice people who are good, kind citizens. No, we have this particular program for our writing so that they can write and speak with clarity to preach the gospel. What's the point? If you can't go from here and clearly express with style and beauty to your neighbor or to that person at the grocery store or to your college professor what the gospel is, then there's no point to it.
So fable writing well to speaking well, that takes us to the Word made flesh. We were talking earlier. Make that connection.
Yeah. How did God, our Creator, make the universe?
Spoke.
Well, He spoke it.
Yeah.
He used powerful words that did powerful things. So He spoke, it happened, and then He sat back and He said, "It is good." And if we are made in the image of God, and we are able to create and craft words into an argument that can lead to following Christ and building His kingdom and worship of God, then I think we've done our job here at Trinity.
Indeed, we have. Rebekah, this has been very inspiring. I would think everyone listening, before your bedtime prayers and bedtime scripture reading, why not add a fable to that tonight? Maybe rewrite it yourself as you're going to sleep. We want to thank you for joining us on the Classical Academy podcast, presented by Trinity U. It's a service of Trinity Classical Academy right here in Santa Clarita. Our producer is Shay Ramquist. Stephen Petre is our audio engineer and provides our original music. So until next time, let's all continue to grow in wisdom, in virtue, and in the love of God. Until next time, thank you.